So you stay here, Luis.
I stay here.
And I save time by not having to introduce you again.
There you go.
And I do want to introduce Cindy Kazanis, who is the Director of the Educational Data Management Division in the California Department of Education. And their topic is, and I think it's something that you're all interested in, I know I am, the next generation assessments in K12. That's going to take some bandwidth.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Thank you very much for the invitation to present. I guess if we're in a room of librarians, I can put on my librarian hat. I'm a daughter and a sister of a librarian. So it's friendly quarters in this, for me at least. Luis and I are tag teaming on this presentation. I work for the California Department of Education, and Luis is the Chief Technology Officer for Imperial County Office of Education, which has the grant to operate the K12 high-speed network program, which is through the state budget. Over $8 million annually the state invests in this project. So we're just going to go over a couple of basics so we're all on the same page so you can learn about what we're getting ready to embark upon for this next year in regards to the California Assessment for Student Performance and Progress, CASP. And we'll give you a technical overview of it as well as talk about some of the challenges and barriers for our public schools. So Assembly Bill 484 was passed into law and signed by the governor in October of last year, and that replaces the STAR program, which the new STAR program is now called CASP. So that's our new language for public schools. And a lot of the, so what we're starting off with for this year, what 484 does is require every single student who's eligible to take the test, which is about 3.3 million students in our testing population. And the important piece of this is it's going to be an online assessment. So this is the testing population. It's grades 3 through 8, 9 and 10 if they're in the scientific sample, which is roughly 5% of our students. Grades 11 and CSTs will still be done paper pencil in science in the grades that are listed 5, 8, and 10. So what is different for California than other states is we decided to go all in. We were only, up until this legislation passed, we're only going to do the 5% sample. So we told our districts in October, you better be ready. So, so this is quite a gear up in a very short period of time. So we are part of an assessment consortium called Smarter Balance. Some people refer to it as SBAC, but it's really Smarter Balance to us at the state level. And that is a multi-state consortium. A lot of the western states are part of the consortium. And then if you go Midwest a little bit, and then in the Northeast as well. The remainder of the states are either conducting their own online or their own assessments. Granted, this is aligned with the new Common Core standard, so that's why this is such a national focus. And the other remainder of the states are aligned with a consortium called PARC, and I can't tell you what that stands for, but Smarter Balance is what we're belonging to. We have a national co-chair in our department. Actually, my boss serves on that, as well as the technical design committee. The national co-chair also works for the Department of Education, so we're real excited to be real leaders in this effort. So what the consortium has done is developed an item bank of over 20,000 items that they'll be testing through this field test. And the field test, again, is a test of the test. It's designed, these assessments were all part of the national standards is towards college and career readiness. So if you've heard Common Core mentioned in the news, sometimes it's done, there's a whole spectrum out there of people's thoughts and opinions on it. But that is the goal, is to make sure that our students are ready for it with 21st century skills, and part of that is to do this online assessment. So this year is our dress rehearsal. We're encouraging, the legislation mandates that our students take this test in an online capacity. This year it's computer based. Next year it'll be computer adaptive. So it's pretty exciting for us in that we've never done this before. We have a student population of over 6 million students, and so this is a pretty big endeavor, again, to gear up to starting back in October of this year. So the field test starts next week. There are 6-week windows. There's 4 testing windows, so each school has been assigned a window. LEAs, a school district may have more than one window for all of their schools, depending on how large the school district is. And again, I did say that number, 3.3 million students will be tested during this window. So all on the CalREN network. What is required to conduct the test is the download of what they call a secure browser. And the secure browser is specific to the operating system of the device. And that allows the test to go into a kiosk mode so that students can go out to Google and Google the question or the answer, rather. As far as downloading the secure browser, that's something that we've been gearing our schools up for. You should do well in advance of the test. You should use the secure browser when you're doing the practice and training tests, which are available online, and we can show you that at the end if we have a little bit of time. It is an annual update that has to be done for that secure browser, so we did have a certain population of students last year that took a pilot version of this. They actually have to go and uninstall the secure browser and upload this newest one. The kiosk mode does this whole check of prohibited applications, and it'll actually require, if there's something open that is prohibited, for that application to be shut down before you're able to get online. This is my technical diagram that I did not create. So if we look at the top piece, which is colored in blue. Oh, it does have a laser. With this. Oh, here we go. So this blue area in the top, there's 4 boxes. One of them says Item Bank, Test Bank, Data Warehouse, and Reporting. Those are all hosted by the consortium, by Smarter Balance Consortium. They have contractors that have put majority of this stuff together, but that is what is being hosted at the consortium. What's going to be hosted, or rather is hosted at the state level, is, and this is for operational, so keep in mind this is not for this year, but test registration, test administration, test delivery, and the scoring, and so forth. This is for operational for next year. Currently, this gray box is being done by Smarter Balance for the field test. The Smarter Balance piece, that relationship changes next year when we go into operation. What is unique, and I want to point out, spend a little bit of time on this relationship, is what we're using our longitudinal student data system for. California Longitudinal Pupil Achievement Data System, or rather, also known as CalPADS, is how we keep track of our students in California. So we have current enrollments, we have demographic information in there, we have program and course information as well, and that's what our schools are required to use to report to the state those kind of information. And so we are actually for the first time using the data that schools already report to us to feed into the test registration system. So for a student to get online to this test this year, they have to be in CalPADS, and we know that our schools, connect, update CalPADS on a regular basis. We know some of them connect, or rather, update information on a more regular basis. Now they'll be required to do it, really. On a much regular basis. We do have certain areas that have high mobility, and this is going to be really important so that if you have a student that arrives during the testing window, that information is kept up to date. So this is our chart for our plans for next year, but I think it gives a good idea of the variety of relationships when it comes to how we're going to actually implement this test in California. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Luis to finish the discussion.
Thank you, Cindy. That was a great overview. This is not your pencil and paper test. We've somehow managed to turn the assessment people's world upside down, and so as you can relate, there's a lot of anxiety going on about this change. And I also don't want to understate the effort that's going around the field today for a lot of people, the technical people and the assessment coordinators. They're scrambling right now to be ready to test in their next windows in March. I'm going to give you a bit of perspective on the technical side. What does this mean for the network? What does this mean for Scenic and CalREN? So in K12, we have a model where we aggregate traffic. So the CalREN backbone really doesn't have the ability to connect the 10,600 schools that are in California, not even counting charters. Charter is a little different. If you count charters, you're probably adding another 500 to 600 sites in California. And so we have 10,600 schools. We serve 6.5 million students in K12. And it's a wide range. We have districts that may have students, maybe 5 to 10 students. And then we go down, we have all the spectrum going up to a district like LAUSD that serves 650,000 students. So California has everything. It has all the spectrum geographically, the diversity. It's extremely challenging, as some of you have already related in previous conversations. So we aggregate traffic in what we call node sites, K12 node sites. And these are typically a county office of education. There are 58 county offices of education around the state. We have 73 node sites in California that help us aggregate, and these node sites connect directly to CalREN. Okay? So under this model, the typical model that we see in California is we have schools connecting to the respective district office, and this is what we call the last mile here for the schools, and then district office connecting to their county office. This is a model that's been in place for numerous years that even predates CalREN. In some cases, because of geographical challenges, we may have a school connected directly to a node site. And that typically is an alternate connection model, and that has to do that maybe this school district doesn't have the capacity to serve the particular school for some reason. And then in some cases, we have a district connected to, or a school connected to a node site directly. In the actual case, we also have an exception in LAUSD being the largest district. That's just connected directly to CalREN. It doesn't make any sense to put it behind any county office just because of its sheer size. So this is a model that's in place, and we've talked about the libraries. What model would they connect? It's still to be determined, right? There's some potential synergies that could happen, within K12 and libraries. Potentially, they could follow this model, or they could, instead of a school, that could be a library connected to an existing node site. So this is our typical model. And so we developed this graph so that as there's a lot of anxiety in the field and people really trying to understand how the network operates, we have a lot of layers. We go down to the classroom or the typical assessment environment. This could be a classroom, this could be a computer lab, or this could be a learning space. And this is where the endpoints connect. This is where you typically see your wireless. From there, you go to the school wing. The wing is where you have an aggregate of classrooms, and then from there, you connect to the school site. From the school site to the district office, from the district office to a county office or a K12 node site, and then from the node site into the CalREN backbone. So as you can see, there's a lot of layers to the communication as you move forward, and the network is really only as good as the weakest link. So really in California, where we're going to have a lot of the challenges are right here, where we're seeing the last mile and to the school, the connection from the district to the school, and in most cases as well, district office to the county office. Just to give you an idea, 83% of schools in California are connected to CalREN. It doesn't mean that they're adequately connected. We still have a lot of challenges in the last mile, as some of the libraries can relate, specifically in the rural areas, in the rural communities. Again, 73 node sites where we aggregate traffic, and we've been doing a lot of work in the last couple of years to make sure that the 73 sites have the capacity to serve the assessment system. Adequate capacity in school districts obviously will require additional efforts. I mean, it's not about just the connection to the school door. We keep talking about T1s. That just gets you the connection to the door. Then we need to worry about how do we get that connectivity down to the actual classroom. So there are some challenges there as well, trying to get that equipment, the Wi-Fi, and all those things in there. So for the assessment, we're talking about the baseline assessment. This is a test of the test. The assessment is really the bottom line. We're talking about the assessment eventually. This is a summative assessment at the end of the year. But as we move forward, the assessment will evolve. It'll include other subject areas like science. It'll also be done as a formative assessment. It'll be used as a tool for educators to assess how students are progressing through the year, not only summative. And we expect that the test will also have multimedia objects. So the requirements of the test will only grow over time. For now, we have 20 kilobits per second. That's the bandwidth required by the secure browser. And there might be some activity spiking in when you log in. You might download some client-side code. For this year, for the field test, we're not in production yet, but for the field test, the servers are going to be hosted in Chicago. And this basically is the servers that are gonna serve 23 member states in the consortium. So all those resources are going to be in Chicago rack space, and we've worked very hard to make sure that we identify the paths from CalREN into the Chicago infrastructure so that we can leverage on as much shared infrastructure that is already, like Internet 2 and some of the other nationwide networks that are out there. So some of them are very obvious. Some of the challenges is network capacity, so the last mile affecting rural and isolated communities. And this is a particular interesting challenge in California. I've had the pleasure to actually go out around the state and visiting a lot of the regions and along with my colleague there, Ed Smith from Scenic, and really trying to firsthand understand what these issues are. And you'd be surprised. There are districts that really want to buy this. They have the money, they can spend some dollars to do it, but there's no choices. They go out to bid, no responses come back because there is no infrastructure. And we go down to spectrum. We've gone to locations where bids come back for schools to connect, and they're just outrageous costs. Somewhere, we've seen quotes of $40,000 a month for a 100 megabit connection because of the lack of infrastructure. So that's definitely the network is going to be a huge issue. We're going to have issues at the local area, the local capacity, the wireless or the assessments, the actual assessment environments, the computer labs, having enough computing devices, having enough adequate power, adequate lighting, adequate conditions for the students taking the assessment. For the field test, the students will be tested for approximately 4 hours in the areas of math and English language arts. And they can take this test in chunks of 45 minutes if they wish to do that. Devices, the consortium supports numerous devices from mobile devices to like Android devices, iOS devices, Apple, operating systems like Windows and Mac, and more of the popular platforms out there. Technical support will be a big issue, and I think this is where county offices, where my county office hat is where we're seeing a lot of hand-holding with our school districts, really trying to help them navigate through the complexities of making this work and downloading the browser, agreeing on what platforms to use. But technical resources and technical support is really a scarce resource in general, I would think, in California, in particular in public education, where a lot of schools over the last few years have had very difficult fiscal challenges, and unfortunately the tech guys were the first ones to go. So now schools are having to rebuild that capacity and train their technical staff if they can find them locally. One of the experiences that we have, unfortunately, in our valley, where there's a lot of there's not a lot of technical resources, that we see them playing musical chairs. A district is hiring and they move from one place to the other, but we're really not replacing that talent in those areas. And obviously there's a lot of work going on, and the technical people talking to the assessment people and building professional capacity, training. There's a lot of material out there the department has put together, that the contractors have put together. There's no shortage of information. I think there's just a lot of information. So you go in there and it's really overwhelming, the amount of information that is out there. So how do you contextualize that? How do you put people in a room so that they can really understand what their role is and what they need to do to prepare for the assessment? So those are really the key challenges that we're struggling with. And we're having a lot of conversations with districts that don't have the capacity. What are you going to do? So the contractors are reaching out and talking about strategies. If you have a T1, we have, and this is not just a rural problem. There are schools in the LA area that have 2,000 students that are running on a T1. So, whoa. Now you can go to sleep, yeah. So the problem is really widespread, and it's going to take a lot of dialogue and people really understanding. In some cases, people or schools are going to have to stop doing all what they're doing, using the network and let students test, right? Because in a T1, you can probably test around 30 to 40 students at the same time. That's assuming that there's nothing on the T1, which we know that is probably already saturated, right? So again, there's a lot of resources out there, tons of resources on computer adaptive testing. From the consortium, from the Department of Ed, from the contractors that are actually implementing this in the field. There's training manuals. There's videos that actually educate parents about why the importance of the assessment system, that helps educate students on the importance of this, why we're going through this whole field test. There's questions, well, why are we testing the test, right? And it's really a safe environment to make mistakes, because we know that there are going to be a lot of issues that are going to surface up, and that we hope that people can learn from these experiences and we can apply them to the production environment. So let me stop there for a minute. Do we have any questions? Are we doing good on time, or?
We actually have about 3 minutes.
Okay, so I actually want to jump into the secure browser, because I want you to really look at this and so that you can understand that this is not a bubble sheet, and it's complex.
There's a question back there. You want to get on the secure browser?
About the secure browser, what is it? I mean, what is it built with? Open source technology?
It's a stripped down Firefox, basically designed version of a Firefox browser. So basically it's programmed by the AIR, right?
What OSs?
It works on Mac OS, it works on Windows platform, and it works on Android and iOS devices. And am I missing some? No, those are the. In Chrome OS, Chromebooks, yes.
And it's open source?
Yeah.
Yes.
And actually, the whole test registration, the whole system will be open source, because we'll have to go to bid on it next year. So,
Are the questions randomized?
I'm not sure how the questions are working this year, since it's computer based versus computer adaptive. I mean, it'll start next year. The questions will actually change based on how the student responds to a series of questions. So actually, either it'll adjust down or adjust upwards.
Grant, that's not the same as is it randomized. In other words, a person sitting next to
Yeah, I'm not sure of the answer to that question. Have you heard anything about being randomized?
It'll be randomized.
It should be.
Randomized. In future, it'll be adaptive. So what adaptive means is that it depends on how quickly the student answers the question. If it's correct, it'll start giving it a more complex answer. And if it starts getting answers incorrectly, then it'll start
Going down.
stepping down the complexity of the question. I'm going to select third grade because I don't want to be embarrassed here. And so this is a math test. And there's some accommodation things, and then there's some instructions. So we'll begin test now.
It's actually there's a glossary for, I believe, 18 different. Is it 18? Maybe it's 10 languages, and then American Sign, and there's a Braille component.
So it'll have some interactive components. This is not your bubble sheet. You'll have to. There's some comprehension. There's reading. There's performance tasks. You can interact with the test. And so in this case, it's asking. It puts a problem with an L-shaped desk, and then here you really have to divide the desk, and you have to connect the line here to divide that in equal rectangles. And then you actually have to drop in or drag and drop the answers into the box.
Have you given thought to the mechanics with kids who are going to be using like touch pads versus mice, because there's a real big difference in how you grab and drag?
That is huge. That's come up in a lot of the pilot testing that was done last year, that the students really need to be very familiar with the device. They have to really sit down and practice with this. Students did much better with the mouse and having the desktop rather than the mobile device and the tablet. So it does take a lot of getting used to the interface piece.
There's some requirements on just the device, the accessories. They have to have an external keyboard, so that's actually one of the things. There are minimum specifications for the size of the screen. Students have to have headphones because there is a listening skills piece too. So there's a lot of components built in that are you wouldn't think. And we're out of time. We're out of time. All right. Well, thank you. If
Thank you so
have any
much.
questions, you can come up.